Good afternoon, everyone. This is County Executive Pat Ryan, joined by special guest, one of my favorite elected officials and public servants and fellow veteran, Sheriff Juan Figueroa. Thanks for joining us, Sheriff. Good to see you.
Thank you, County Exec. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to talk about, I think, a really positive piece of the budget looking forward to next year that the sheriff and his team and my team have been working on. So we want to do that in person and appreciate you being here. Before I do that, I am just going to give our normal updates on COVID-19. The good news is they can be brief because the situation remains very stable and very good. In terms of the normal numbers that we run through, we've had a total of 2,268 total cases since the beginning of the pandemic, out of now over 94,000 tested, which is incredible as we approach 100,000 tested. Thankfully, we've remained at 95 fatalities now for several weeks and holding steady at that number. And right now we're at an active number of 108 active cases of COVID and over 2,000 residents recovered. In terms of hospitalizations, we are also holding steady on those numbers, and you can see on the graph we're hovering right still well below that 5 and hovering in the low single digits there. In terms of active cases, as I mentioned, we're holding actually quite low at 108. That's the lowest or near the lowest we've been in several months, fortunately. And in terms of the new positive case number, which is that most important metric we're always looking at, continued good news here over the last really 96 hours and each of the 24-hour periods within that, we've stayed under 1% for new infection rate. That is something we're continuing to watch very closely. We have seen these numbers start to slightly inch up in other parts of the state, but in Ulster County, we're holding steady and holding strong under 1%, which definitely is a credit to the whole community, doing what we've asked in terms of masks and distancing and hand washing. Again, just to give you the hospital capacity numbers, as we always do, we'll put that slide up quickly. The number is slightly up here, but still within that normal range. And we're watching that carefully, but have more than sufficient long-term need if needed. And again, just as a reminder, and before we get to the main business of the day, the only way that we can keep these numbers the way they are is to continue to recognize that each of us has an individual responsibility, not just to keep ourselves and our family safe, but also to keep the more vulnerable in our community safe. So please, please, please continue to wear the masks, maintain distancing, wash hands. I know it is getting old, to be frank, but as we start to get into the colder temperatures and have more and more people out and about, and we've seen where people let their guard down, how this can go wrong, it is just critical that we keep leading and keep on our front foot on this and not let our guard down. So thank you to everybody that's been doing that, and please, please keep that up. Thank you for listening to that update as I went through that, Sheriff. And you know,
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, it affects our economy, and we went through a rough time when this pandemic started. So the mask and social distancing and washing your hands it's important.
And we've seen it work.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And thank you as well to you and your team. You've been spending quite a lot of time helping make sure that people are following those rules in the rare cases where they're not. And I know also within the county jail that you and your team lead, it's been one of the most healthy facilities like that in the state, if not the country, and that's a huge credit to you and your team.
Definitely the staff. They've been amazing. You walk into our building and you really have to wash your hands, and you get your temperature checked, and your mask has to be on, and it's constant.
I can attest to that. They get me every
constant.
time.
They do a great job, and hats off to the corrections division. They've been doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And thank God that we haven't had anything happen at the county jail.
And as we've seen challenges in the state facilities here, it really does validate that when you put in the work and you do the right things, you can keep this in check.
Absolutely.
So it really is a credit.
And like you said, the mask, washing hands, I mean, it works.
Yep.
The proof is at the county jail.
Yep, yep. On that note, actually, part of what we wanted to talk about and jointly announce today really leads into the work and is informed by the work we've been doing coming out of COVID. You know, we obviously had the health impacts of COVID, but then we've had this ripple effect of other challenges and impacts, from housing need and food need to a surging mental health crisis, and of course, the financial pressures on everybody, and including county government, as we had a $34+ million hit to our expected revenues. Plus, as if 2020 wasn't intense enough, we've had a national reckoning and dialogue on criminal justice reform that's both played out nationally but also played out here, and that you have been really a key driver of and participant in through our Justice and Reform Commission. And I want to thank you for your work and your leadership on that too. I think it's encouraging to all the residents of the county when our leader of our public safety and law enforcement community is at the table helping guide and inform those conversations. And that is not the norm in a good way. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you and your staff and the folks at the county exec's office. It's like the trifecta of things this year when it comes to law enforcement, the budget, bail reform, COVID-19, anti-law enforcement sentiment. It's been a unique year for all of us in law enforcement.
And I think the thing that I know we agree on is, in these moments where we're wrestling with really hard issues, it has to start from a place of, let's have hard conversations, but let's do it respectfully, professionally, with the facts and the data. These are emotional, difficult issues, but we have to be able to come together for the greater public good to address them. And that's hard. I mean, that's tough, but we are all doing our best with that, I know. And you've really been a model of that I've even tried to model your behavior and learn from, so thank you for that. And on that note, one of the areas we really focused on, especially with the financial pressure in our county finances and the due to bail reform, some of the declining numbers of inmates in our jail, we looked at, are those numbers right? Are we able to deliver that service at the right value to our residents? And I'm really proud that in doing that work, your team and our team sat down. We went through all the numbers, toured the facility, got your take. And ultimately, really, I'm genuinely proud that we are able to announce that we've by making some adjustments on staffing, save over $1 million as a county at a time of great pressure due to those adjustments. And equally as importantly, to take that funding and apply it to another absolutely critical need in our county, which is a mental health crisis that is just growing and spiraling. And to be in a place where we can more proactively address those crises with care rather than with incarceration, that really, of course, as I know you agree, has to be the last resort. I think that says a lot about who we are, and so thank you for that, and I want to obviously give you a chance to talk about your thoughts on that.
Sure.
But I think the residents of the county should just be proud of the cooperation. I know I am.
I am too, and this was important to look at the situation where you look at bail reform, you look at the pandemic, and look at law enforcement in general, and how we as leaders have to really take a look, in particular with the budget issue that the county has, to make sure that we can come to an agreement that's going to continue to keep the population safe and the staff safe at the Ulster County Jail, and be able to save monies. I took office, the numbers are 260 average and
That's inmates in the.
inmates
Yeah.
in the jail. That has gone down to about a little over 115 in January, and we're at around the 180 range right now, 187. But I don't see the numbers going back to the way they were prior, due to the way we're all revisiting and reforming how law enforcement is to work. And so this deal to help offset the county's budget is important to us. It protects the population, protects our workers at the county jail, and it's an adjustment that needs, if it needs to be revisited, we can go and revisit
Right.
it. And that's the great part of the plan. And so I was happy to sit with you and your staff to come with this great plan to look forward, and really forward lookers to see how we can save money and protect the folks at the county jail.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of other communities are wrestling with this and haven't been able to get there. We don't have it 100% figured out, and it is a very dynamic situation. And as you said, this plan gives us that flexibility where if we need to adjust one way or the other, we can. And I think it's just a credit to you and the team's willingness to let the data drive what we're doing, but also recognize that things are very much
Absolutely.
in flux.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how much of this you can share or not. Part of the way we're able to drive this is because due to the lower numbers, and correct me if I'm not saying this the right way, but we are able to essentially close some of the pods, right?
That's right.
To the degree you can talk about that, can you, because I think that's helpful to understand kind of how this is working in a way that we're not actually reducing, there's no layoffs, we're not reducing the workforce, it's just that you're able to safely close some of the pods, right?
That's correct. So the housing units, we were able to close 2 of them in order to save on the staffing levels within the 3 shifts. It's a 24/7 operation, and we, with the county's incentive for retirement, and basically there was an attrition rate that we were able to look at the numbers and say, look, we can do this in a more effective way, and in a way that can help the budget and keep the safety at the county jail. And that was done with your staff and our staff, and I'm really proud of that. And I also want to thank you for having foresight to have that, and especially in light what's going on, that we can sit and talk and have a serious discussion about looking at the numbers.
And we are, to broaden out from just this item, we're having the same conversation as I head into finalizing and presenting my budget in 48 hours. We've had to wrestle with these same tough issues across the board in county government. We have about a $340 million operating budget, and because of the COVID impacts, we took a 10%, $34 million hit to that budget, which means hard discussions. But at a moment like we're at, with so much impact on our residents who are already paying a lot in taxes, we can't add more pressure to them.
That's
so
right.
We have to be able to get creative,
right.
and to some degree do more with less.
Absolutely.
So this is one of many examples of that. Again, I think that the county taxpayers, I hope feel good about. I know we feel good about.
Yep, it was the right thing to do, and you're right. The economy took a hit on the county finances, and we all had to take a bite of that sandwich.
So that's the piece we wanted to at least formally talk about. While I have you here, how's everything else going? How
it's a unique time.
What's your perspective on COVID, on how our county's doing? And I think we've responded. I mean, it's been a roller coaster, but I think we've responded collectively really well. I'm curious what you're seeing.
Yep, the county government, your office, the emergency management team. I think a lot of people would have died if you didn't take the actions that you've taken. And we've all sat and looked at the numbers at other counties and look at what, we're only an hour and a half north of New York City. So what was accomplished here is huge to have that safety in numbers and always explaining and educating people that it's always important that look out, putting that mask on is about not only yourself as a person protecting you, but protecting others. And we've stressed that here in this county, and that was able to save, countless lives. And yes, it's a unique time in not just in law enforcement, but in humanity in general for all of us. And think about everything that's occurred this year and where we're looking, past November, what's going to happen. And it's a unique time for all of us, and to be able to work together and come to solutions and hard conversations that are not always easy. These are things that have to be done. And again, I think a lot of people here in county government, and I thank you for being able to do that. But I thank the folks that work for us too, because they take the brunt of us. The people that work for you here in the county government, the emergency management, the corrections division, the criminal division, the civil division, people that have to work, that are essential workers, people at the hospitals, and everything that they do, and it was all of us that did that together, not just the government, but the people in general that did all this together.
That's what I think has been amazing. Is, I mean, any of us could say, yeah, you should wear a mask, but unless each individual recognizes the collective imperative and the responsibility that they each have, it doesn't work, right? And I think that's where not just the county, but the state even really stands out, where, I'm talking to friends in other places where it's a battle just to have people understand that masks work, and that, that's part of why we were able to slow things. So I think you're right. I know you're busy, but other things on your mind, and while I'm giving you time to think about that, I want to also just share one other piece of the equation, I guess, in the plan that we've been able to work out. I talked about the savings that we were able to achieve, over $1 million through those adjustments, and I briefly mentioned that we'll be prioritizing that funding to meet the growing mental health need in the county. We've seen, actually, in the last 6 months, a doubling of our suicide rate in Ulster County, which is just unacceptable. And so to specifically address that in next year's budget, we're directing $900,000 specific to mobile mental health, and over almost $14 million in total to overall mental health services as a county. But to be able to direct that savings from our work together to what I know is one of the real crisis points of how do you help someone at that moment where they're experiencing a mental health crisis or episode, and how do we respond in the right way. Part of that funding is actually going to allow us, for the first time ever, to put a licensed professional mental health specialist in our 911 center, which is something that very few places are doing around the country, to recognize that when someone calls 911 with that type of an issue, it requires really a specialization to make sure that we can meet that need and respond in the right way rapidly. So that's a big part of what we're doing with that funding, in hopes that we can meet that big need.
Sure, and that plays a role as well with most folks that are involved in the opioid epidemic. There's always an underlying mental health condition, and a lot of our calls for law enforcement, there's always something to do with mental health. So I commend you for coming up with that. I think this is going to be a good plan. We've utilized the mobile health for the county before, and to expand it, I think, is important, especially today, in today's world and what's going on.
And what you mentioned, the opioid epidemic, I mean, the initiative that you started in taking office almost right from the beginning, right? Or the Oracle initiative. If you're willing to talk about that a little bit, it's really been instrumental in changing the culture of how we respond to the epidemic, and just building really a new approach that you've been on the forefront of.
And that's great. And we couldn't have done it without the folks at the county health department, people like Vince Martello, and the individuals that are on our team. Like some people may think that there's no like the corrections officer that is our coordinator actually has 2 master's degrees in behavioral science and psychology,
Wow.
and so he goes out and he talks to these individuals, and it is a culture change where law enforcement actually helps someone to get into rehab rather than bringing them to the county jail when they commit a crime because they're trying to support their habits. So it is a big culture change in how we do business, but it's something that we've been thinking about for a while in law enforcement because what we've been doing hasn't been working.
Right.
So it's been going on for a little over a year now, and its success is because it's teamwork with the county, with the folks at Ellenville Hospital, with the folks at the county health department, and so many partners like Samadhi, People's USA, Catholic Charities, and so many partners that we have, the peer advocates, Family of Woodstock, and these are all organizations that we've teamed up with, and it's been a great run. It's to watch it evolve has been absolutely amazing to me, and it's been working. And it couldn't been done. It couldn't be done without those partners that I stated earlier, including your office.
Well, and especially with the rise we've seen in all these challenges we've talked about, from substance use to mental health, to see your organization adjust in just in the last month to step up the pressure on the folks that are bringing the very lethal and dangerous fentanyl into the county. I know that's gone a long way to trying to get those numbers back in check. So, it's been an unprecedented year. And we're not out of it. I mean, we're still at a point of great risk and challenge. So, we don't have it all figured out. No one does.
Working that way.
But we're working really hard. We're working together. We're working with the input of the community. And I think we're willing to adjust as we see what works and what doesn't. That's really all you can do in this kind of situation that we find ourselves in.
Definitely fluid with so many things happening this year. I'm hoping next year will be a little bit better.
A boring 2021 that's going to be my wish when I get a chance to make a wish.
Absolutely.
So I have a very serious note to end on. I just want to point out that I have this like super lame mask, and the sheriff has a really cool mask. Do you want to show everybody your cool mask?
Well, actually, we have folks that make us so many masks and they drop it off. So I want to thank them for doing that. Most of these folks volunteer, and they make us masks because they know we're out there 24/7.
That's awesome.
You can't walk into the building without a mask, and so it's important. I'm looking at our superintendent who's off here on the side here. He runs that place. I mean, you cannot walk in particular on his side of the house, even walk in the hallway without a mask on. So it's important. So
I gotta get a cool mask. That's really why I brought that up. Is I gotta figure out how.
I'll get one for you.
I gotta get a cool mask. But unless you want to add anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up?
No, I think it's been, like you said, a unique year, a challenging year for government, in particular in the community, and with people aren't working and the financial issues that they have at home, and what our responsibilities are for government and looking to save money like we have been, and changing the culture on how we do business is huge. And it's fluid. It's not going to be perfect, like you said. We just have to work together and keep moving forward and listening to people, because we also have to listen. We have to be good listeners.
I agree. I think the servant leadership ethos that we both learned in our military service hopefully will continue.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I want to thank. We always end our updates just thanking all of the frontline workers that. And this is far from an exhaustive list, but absolutely on that list are our law enforcement professionals who, even before COVID, have been asked to do so much to address many of the challenges we face across a broad spectrum. So thank you to them, and also to our corrections officers who, especially in our facility, have kept the entire population there and the folks there safe and healthy through the pandemic. So that's our special shout out, thank you today. But to all of our frontline workers in Ulster County that have kept us, that have gotten us through this, that have kept us healthy and safe, thank you. We're hoping we are not going to need to, rely on you much longer, but we're not through this yet. And I do think going into the fall, you're going to continue to hear me urge and push that we continue to do the things we need to keep us in the steady and safe position we're in. As always, if you are out there or you know someone out there that is having an issue or a need across all the different dimensions that we're experiencing pressure in, whether paying for childcare, getting food, housing, mental health, you can always call our Recovery Services Center, which is open Monday through Friday via that phone number, 443-8888, or via the web or email. And just know that between the sheriff and I and our teams, there's always someone. We are here for you. If you have nowhere else to go or feel you have nowhere else to go, please reach out if you're struggling with any issues, and we will work to get those issues resolved and get help to you and get that care to you. So thanks again, Sheriff. It's good to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is. Our next update. What's today? Is today Tuesday? Yeah. Our next update. I lose track. I'm sure you do too. Our next update will be on Thursday, and also, if for anybody interested, Thursday morning at 11 a.m. I'll be presenting my 2021 budget, where we'll talk more about the different initiatives. We've previewed some of them here, but we'll go in depth on those and what's ahead in the year to come. So until then, excuse me, I need another cup of coffee today. Stay safe and healthy and be resilient, and we'll see you in a few days.